So now I'm going to launch into my update on what's going on in plant materials. And the cover image there is exactly what I'm super excited about right now, which is what's coming up in our greenhouse. Anybody ID those seedlings? I know cotyledon stage is pretty tough. Any guesses? Okay, they're a new species for us. That one is flowering spurge, or Euphorbia correlata. We've got, oh gosh, I can't remember how many collections we took of that last year, but these are new seedlings from remnant collected seed, which is the basis of all the seed that we produce at the Tallgrass Prairie Center, which we then provide to native seed growers, is collections made in remnant prairies across the state of Iowa. So just a reminder of the foundation of that program. And so just a quick glance at, I mentioned our mission is to support a seed supply for restoration. And we do that by providing source-identified seed to the native seed industry, doing this kind of networking and communications work, and then disseminating information on what we learned through the fact that we actually are growing native seed, and that we are a public seed producer who's charged partly with making that information available. So here's a lot of what we're doing now is refreshing our stock seed bank. So species that we have produced in the past, but that are either dwindling in their supply in our seed bank or are getting old and losing their viability, we grow them out again in our fields. To do that, we start with generation 1 seed that we have stored in a freezer. And this enables us to reestablish those fields, refresh the seed without having to go back and make all of those remnant collections again. So this saves us a considerable amount of time and the expense of travel. And it also makes some genetics available that aren't available anymore, because all of us know that some of those populations that we collected from maybe 20 or 30 years ago may no longer be there. So this is a process that enables us to continue producing that valuable seed. And this is, of course, Prairie Blazing Star in our fields last summer. We're also working on producing new Iowa type seed. So we are investigating what could be some gaps in the native seed market and identifying some species that are either poorly available in general or are not as available as Iowa source identified seed. And producing those as new ecotypes from collections made now from remnant prairies. And so these are some examples of those that we got in the fields for the first time last year and were able to harvest from. Okay, there's one exception. One was planted 2 years ago. We have 4-flower yellow loosestrife, which is on the top left. And top center is Dudley's Rush. Top right is Hoary vervain, Verbena stricta. It's a common species in the native seed market, but one where we had not yet produced one of our Iowa ecotypes. Bottom left is Kalm's brome or Arctic brome. This is a native cool season grass, and we got a decent harvest off of that last year from first-year plants. That center picture is a little bit of a cheat. I took that picture in my own yard. But we did grow wild strawberry at the Tallgrass Prairie Center last year and learned a lot about why that seed is expensive. But we have some ideas about how valuable it could be as well. And then on the bottom right is American water horehound, a native mint species for wet prairies. And so all of these, we now have seed in our stock seed bank for these. So how do we choose which species we're going to collect? We have a set of criteria we use. They need to be prairie species or savanna or prairie wetland species. We choose things that are pretty widespread across the state of Iowa and hopefully also into neighboring states, because we feel that will make the market for those species more viable for producers who grow them. We look for things that have been persistent throughout the changes that have occurred in our landscape. So those are things that are likely to be resilient to future change. We also consider any special functions like pollinator value that those species might have. And we respond to stakeholder interests. So if folks tell us that, man, we'd really like to see more early season things on roadsides, or we'd like more native cool season graminoids. We listen to those things. Or if growers tell us, hey, there's a specific species I'm looking for I'd like to grow. Can you get us some stock seed of that? We will get that in the pipeline. A couple other considerations is just, is it hard to find this as a source ID seed, or if we have some feedback from like our restoration program that it's a species that does establish well from seed, that's another thing that would be a good indicator. It would be a good species to collect. Are there species that check all those boxes? Occasionally, but we do look for things that check multiple boxes before we invest the time and effort into developing them. And then we get to do my favorite part of all, which is to visit remnant prairies from across the state and harvest seed. So this is my gratuitous selfie for the talk. This is my student, Alex Hansen, going out with me last year to collect Euphorbia corrallata, or flowering spurge seed. And this process, we have a lot of gratitude to offer. Thanks to all of the agencies and individuals who grant us permission to collect seed, as well as those who share information with us about what good collection locations would be, and when to collect. So I know last fall, I think it might have been Laura Miner in the room who said, Laura, you better get out and get that euphorbia collected because it's going to be gone before you know it. So we made a mad dash and we got a lot of good collections of that. So this is a great part of the process. Ooh, wow, there's one missing here. Okay, there it is. All right, so these are some species of seed that we hope are coming to you soon, maybe in 2025. So last year, in addition to the Euphorbia corrallata that's at the top right, we also collected groove stem Indian plantain, Ornoglossum plantaginum. We added to our collections of fringed loosestrife, and we're trying to germinate those again. That wasn't super successful for us last year. And bottom right is little seedlings of tapered rosette grass that are growing in the greenhouse right now. We got a few more collections of that, and we're excited to get that more of that in our field. So hopefully we figure out a way to harvest it this year. So some interesting challenges, and we hope to have that seed available soon. And so as we're going through the process of growing out some of these species, we're also looking at what methods work for us, and including those in some of the ways that we disseminate this information. So students get involved heavily in this process, and two of the people in this slide are in the room right now. So Josie Hutchings is right over here. Wave, Josie. And she worked on germinating porcupine grass last year for our Irvine Prairie project, and this is another one where we're considering getting that back into our stock seed process. So Josie tried a number of techniques to germinate that, and she found that the most successful one, baseline was a control where she didn't do any treatment to it and got about 40% germination in the greenhouse. Maximum germination was about 86% in her experiment, and that was with seed that was dissected out of all of its surrounding structures using basically a dissecting pin, and then treated with gibberellic acid. So we learned from that, and we needed to grow out some more plugs of that this year. So the top right is my student Addie, who was greeting you at registration. She's back there at the table. She followed up and she dissected seed again, and we got 94.5% germination on it after that seed was dissected out, so the individual grains. Interesting learning. Is this practical? Absolutely not, unless you're just growing out plugs on a very small scale. So now what we want to do is find some, see if we can find some ways to do perhaps a chemical treatment that would maybe improve germination rates in the field so that we can get this more easily established in our plantings and then share that information more widely. So there's a few things that we work with. Another way that we get information about what works, and that is important in kind of completing sort of the loop and giving us information about how useful these species will be in seed-based restoration, is that we plant them in our restoration and research program. So my colleague Justin Meissen is here today, And he has planted wild strawberry in, or will plant it in 3 different plantings. So, like I mentioned before, we've produced wild strawberry seed. It's extraordinarily expensive in the seed market. We found that the average price is over $5,000 a pound. So it's pretty hard to convince somebody who's doing a restoration to include that in their mix, right? Because it's going to be really expensive. But Justin has included it in a demo site at the Tallgrass Prairie Center, where he planted what he called the waterway mix in spring and fall of 2019, I believe, and planted at a rate of 0.1 seeds per square foot. And he hasn't done a formal monitoring program with that, but he has observed that strawberry plants are present. So we've got some kind of anecdotal evidence that the stuff comes up if you plant it in a seed mix. He's also added it to our mix for our urban prairie restoration at a known rate. And that does have, there's a monitoring program. So we'll get some hard numbers, some quantitative data on the establishment rate of that species from seed in a planting. So you'll be able to know and predict, if I invest in this species, what's going to happen down the line. And it's an extraordinarily valuable species. It's an early season bloomer, which we know is kind of a gap in planted prairies. So Justin included that in our fall 2024 planting. So obviously we don't have data on that monitoring yet, but that will be in the monitoring program for this year. And then we've also purchased some seed for this coming fall's mix, and he'll include that in a slightly higher seeding rate, a rate that is estimated to produce 1 plant per 20 square meters. And this is based on a relationship that Justin's been able to establish between seed size and establishment rate. So there's an estimate there of what we might expect to see, and we'll be able to test that out in the field. And it doesn't sound like much, 1 plant per 20 square meters, but if you think, you walk that off, that's like, I don't know, if you draw a box around a couple of the tables in this room and give it some generous corners, and you think about a strawberry plant coming up within that would be what we'd expect at that seeding rate. And if you know anything about how strawberry plants grow, which a lot of you do, they're going to find their way once you get that individual in there. So we're excited to see what those results are, and then we can share those with the community. So yeah, information sharing is one of the things we do as a public seed producer. So what we learn, we make available to others. So I'm really happy and excited about this species. This is swamp lousewort, or Pedicularis lanceolata. This is one of our native hemiparasites, another kind of a gap in the native seed market as far as functional groups. And we have successfully established this in the greenhouse, moved it out into the field, and our first year's harvest was low, as this pretty normal for perennial forb. Second year's harvest was pretty substantial. We got over 6 pounds of clean seed of this in the fridge right now. So this is one I'd really love to see more investigation into how we could get it to establish from seed in plantings and get that practicality part worked out. But this is now available. This is a screenshot from our native seed production manual that we're working on. We talked about this at the meeting last year. It is now publicly accessible on the Tallgrass Prairie Center website. It is a work in progress, so we appreciate everyone's patience on this. We're adding new species to it and new information to it as we have time, but most of my time is spent in the actual seed production process, so we do this stuff when we have a moment. I really appreciate the assistance of our AmeriCorps members and students in helping to gather and curate the information for this, by the way. And then I've spent a little bit of time over the past year connecting to the broader world of native seed. I've gone to some regional meetings and a national meeting just over in February. To just learn about what's happening in other parts of the world, get some ideas, and some things I brought back from the National Native Seed Conference are related to efforts in California to revitalize their yellow tag seed program. Really interesting to see what they're up to, and also efforts in Arkansas to support new and emerging native seed producers. The Audubon Society is supporting kind of a co-op-based model there. And I'm very intrigued by that, and we'll talk about that in the breakout session this afternoon. So valuable to get out and talk to people in other regions, see what they're doing, and see if we could apply it here. And so I'm just so happy that all of you are here. I'm excited to hear about your thoughts throughout the day, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions that you have right now. And I think we'll just go ahead and move to, let's see, our agenda. Yeah, we'll be ready to move on to Matt's talk at 9:40. So by talking a long time, I think I've got us back on track.